pros and cons of behaviorism. Behaviorism allows learners to move toward acquisition and mastery of standardized procedures and of factual information. Marissa Kiramita states facts and standardized procedures actually are examples of objective knowledge. So standards establish what students should know and learn in each grade. In turn, course objectives are designed to help students meet standards. Teachers design classroom activities to help students learn the facts and procedures that allow the students to meet course objectives and standards. With behaviorism as the foundational learning theory, the instructor uses design activities to direct learner reactions to stimuli, to reinforce or weaken behavior through feedback. Where standards and objectives require acquisition or mastery of procedures or facts, and when there is a prescribed skill or procedure to follow, behaviorism is an acceptable, sometimes a preferable learning theory. Behaviorism builds on learners looking for pattern and structure as they accomplish attainable goals. Nayak, in discussing the theories behind instructional design in 2019, reminds her readers that behaviorism is based on the fact that we prefer consistent structures and patterns. Because of this preference, instructional designers do aim for consistency. Marissa Kiramita also notes that there are 4 areas where behaviorism is a key learning theory: discrimination, generalization, association, and chaining. The first area, discrimination, requires that a learner identify whether items have shared qualities or if a given item belongs to a specific category. This can be observed in classification activities. The second area, generalization, revolves around students identifying common characteristics of specific items in order to formulate a rule or generalization. For example, looking at pictures of candy and writing a generalization about the images. The third area, association, includes linking new information to specific applications. This can be observed through matching activities. For example, our cat activity. The fourth area, chaining, utilizes standard procedures with prescribed steps. As students repeat the sequences of the steps, for example, hand disinfection, their behavior demonstrates their learning of the procedure. Learners benefit in these 4 areas through trial and error. Each of these areas allow the instructor to observe behavior as students build knowledge, comprehension, and application. By assisting learners in gaining basic standardized procedures and facts, behaviorism does set students up to move beyond lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Without knowledge, comprehension, and application, students might struggle with higher taxonomic levels such as analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. But there are some negatives to behaviorism. Behaviorism is limited only to observable learning tasks and does not address mental processes. In the words of George Graham, behaviorism does not help develop intricate internal information processing models of cognition. By not addressing mental processes, behaviorism ignores the complex mental processes, including higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy and language acquisition. Behaviorism reduces the learner to a non-thinking entity, spewing facts from memory. Behaviorism is limited to the observable attainment of the skill or outcome required. In her article, Behaviorism and Instructional Design for E-Learning, Marissa Kiramita explains that in behaviorism, learning is considered to have occurred when a learner reaches the expected outcomes of the learning objective. So a rejection of behaviorism would say behaviorism is limited to an observation of these lowest taxonomic levels. We can observe knowledge through a student stating a fact. We can observe comprehension through a student's summary or paraphrase of information. We can observe application through a student solving a problem or completing a sentence with correct vocabulary. We cannot observe analysis. See the connections and the correlations in the mind. We can't observe synthesis. We can't see the judgments, values, and appraisals a student makes mentally. And we can't observe evaluation because we can't see critiquing, assessing, and appraising taking place in the brain. By focusing on meeting an observable objective, behaviorism can't address the learner's need to analyze, synthesize, or evaluate information in order to make decisions or solve problems. But you see, those are simply not observable behaviors. So behaviorism reduces the learner to a computer, spitting out what the environment has fed into it. In addition to a focus on the lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy, behaviorism cannot address the gains of first language acquisition because it doesn't deal with the brain's information processing. Skinner would say, like any other behavior, language is a skill, and with specific stimuli, language is the expected and repeated reaction. In his 1985 work, Skinner wrote that babies learn to talk in some of the same ways that animals learn behaviors because, he supposed, our vocal muscles must have become susceptible to operant conditioning. Behaviorism's basic view of language development centers on language acquisition as a response to stimuli. It has been observed that young children, however, quickly build a vocabulary even without behavioristic stimuli, even without reinforcement. In the area of first language acquisition, learners quickly outpace reinforcement. Noam Chomsky noted that it is not true that language learning depends on the application of detailed reinforcement. Instead, Chomsky said, we are hardwired for language. If learning language does not depend on systems of positive and negative reinforcement, perhaps there are some innate processing rules for language acquisition. In the area of language acquisition, the anti-nativism of behaviorism is a strike against behaviorism. And this is simply because behaviorism does not study innate processing rules for acquiring new responses and does not address first language acquisition.